Welcome back. You're watching Gravitas. We now look at the next big discussion for this evening. As Barack Obama prepares to leave office in a little over 2 weeks, time to examine his impact on South Asia, especially India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Let's begin with India and the US. The bonhomie that kicked off in the Manmohan Singh era, strengthening under Modi. WION's correspondent Ramesh Ramachandran has this report.
Recall that shot which went viral when an exuberant Narendra Modi embraced Barack Obama at the White House in June last year.
It reflects the transformation in our relationship. It shows your deep personal commitment to this partnership. It tells us that our two nations are prepared to step forward firmly to accept the responsibility of this global partnership for our two countries and for shaping the character of this century.
We are thrilled to be back in India. Mera pyar, bara namaskar. And this reflects my commitment since the beginning of my presidency to deepen our ties with India.
It was quite a transition for America's first black president, who in the initial months of his presidency rubbed New Delhi the wrong way. He said he wanted former President Bill Clinton to mediate between India and Pakistan on Kashmir. Then he tried to bring India into the ambit of his AFPAK envoy's mandate. And he flirted with China, hinting that Beijing should be the South Asian regional hegemon. That said, on balance, the Obama years have been pretty benign for India, and Modi's emphasis on personalized diplomacy paid handsome dividends too. Obama turned up trumps for India, becoming the first American president to visit Delhi twice, even presiding over the Republic Day parade. He gave new life to the moribund civil nuclear deal between the two countries, resulting in an agreement where 6 American nuclear reactors would be built in India. He backed India's entry into the missile technology control regime, and in the last few months, India was designated a major defense partner of the US. The two countries have forged an understanding on China, even if Obama disappointed India by not coming down hard enough on Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Ramesh Ramachandran, WION.
Joining us now live is Ramesh Ramachandran, our foreign affairs correspondent. Ramesh, tell us, India surely has enough reasons to feel satisfied with the way the relations thrived during the Obama years. Your key takeaways from it. Please tell us about that.
Indeed, Rohit, the Obama presidency straddled two Indian governments here, one that of Manmohan Singh and now Narendra Modi. And with both leaders, he had enjoyed a working relationship, a rapport with both Indian leaders. Manmohan Singh he considered a very sagacious leader, valued his insights, especially on the economy, whereas he considered Narendra Modi as a good friend, to quote the White House Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz. Now, on balance, when you're looking back at his presidency, for someone who opposed the India-US nuclear deal while he was a senator, he ensured that he persisted with the implementation of the nuclear deal, and we saw the deal being consummated, as it were, last year, paving the way for the supply of American nuclear reactors. On the other hand, if you look at the region, I mean, his attitude towards China in particular changed over the last 8 years. In 2009, for instance, he was more diffident, but towards the latter half of his second term, we saw a more robust approach, especially in view of the Hague verdict on the South China Sea and his much bandied about pivot or rebalance to Asia. But looking ahead, Rohit, I mean, a lot remains to be seen how Mr. Modi whether he's able to enjoy a working relationship with the Trump administration as he had with Obama. But my understanding is that one can only expect the deepening of the defense and security relationship going forward. especially given the room of maneuver that India has given Trump's statements on Russia, for instance, and also his recent utterances on China, which give some hope for India. But on the other hand, his attitude towards Iran in particular might be a cause for concern for India. Rohit?
Absolutely. There is going to be a lot of maneuvering India will have to do, Ramesh. Thank you for your inputs. At this point, let me introduce our guests for this discussion. In our studios, here we have Pramit Pal Chaudhary. He's the foreign editor of the Hindustan Times. Also joining us live from Washington, the senior associate for South Asia at the Woodrow Wilson Center, Michael Kugelman. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for the show.
Thank you.
Let me start by asking this question to Pramit. In your opinion, what is that India needs to look out for as the Obama years come to an end? What can we look back and say it wouldn't have happened if Obama wasn't there?
Well, I think the area where he and Modi in particular bonded the strongest was actually climate change. When Modi came to office, he was actually very skeptical of Obama. His campaign team actually told me once that we don't expect Modi and Obama to ever have a summit meeting on the bilateral level. There was a lot of anger over the visa issue. And a general sense that Obama had fluctuated, if you wish, in his policies regarding Asia in particular. But that changed, and one of the areas where they did have a very strong common interest was climate change. Obama did also, by then, had also changed his policies, as has been mentioned, on China. Under the Manmohan Singh government, at least, there was a lot of skepticism about Obama's position on China. And also his policies on Pakistan had begun to shift as well. So you had a convergence which did not exist when Obama first came to power between India and the United States on a whole host of fronts. And on defense cooperation, on climate change, and as we mentioned, things like membership of the MTCR, Missile Technology Control Regime, we saw forward movement, at least in the last 2 or 3 years, which we didn't see in the first term of Obama.
Absolutely. The nuclear regimes, India, getting on them.
Yeah.
It was certainly pegged many years ago, but actually getting them on all of those four certainly was an important task. Mr. Kugelman, let me put a question to you. Would you say there was more warmth than usual between Delhi and Washington? Would you say the personalities of Obama and Modi were also at play here?
Well, absolutely. I think that the personal connection between Modi and Obama was instrumental in allowing this bilateral relationship to deepen, even more than it had been prior to Obama and Modi meeting for the first time. And it's funny that, a lot of people would have assumed that Obama would have gotten along better with Prime Minister Singh, simply because, as was mentioned before, Obama really seemed to see a lot of himself in Prime Minister Singh. He saw him as a wonky professor type. Obama, of course, had spent time in academia before joining public service. And yet it's quite extraordinary what happened with, I hate to use the term, but with this bromance between Modi and Obama. And it really got to the point that it was extraordinary, where the two were, referring to each other by their first names, and when they would meet each other. And, the very famous bear hugs that they would have when they would meet each other. It was really quite extraordinary. And, of course, we have to assume some of it was for reasons of optics and other things. But I really do think that the personal relationship between Obama and Modi has been a big reason why this relationship has gotten to the point that it's at now, a point where I think that it will last and sustain itself and continue to get deeper and warmer, even though there's a very different type of president, very different type of personality occupying the White House effective of January 20th of this year.
Yeah, well, many have also said that Trump looks at Modi as well as somebody who set the stage. We were just talking about this earlier, who started this movement towards conservative leadership. But just looking at Obama's time, do you think he did enough on terror, one of India's biggest concerns in South Asia?
I would say the Indian side would say no. There were two fundamental areas where India would have hoped for more. One was in tackling the Islamic State. The sense was that Obama, who was desperate to get out of the Middle East, he saw the Middle East, and he saw that particularly under people like Tom Donilon in the first administration, that the pivot to Asia was partly about pivoting away from the Middle East, that America had consumed too much blood and treasure in getting involved in all of the nonsense in the Middle East, and he desperately wanted to get out of that. And the result was also their policy, if you wish, of sort of on and off neglect of the Middle East at a time when the Middle East was disintegrating. And so you saw under Syria the decision not to intervene, a decision to go into Libya and then get out without actually getting anything done. But really, I think the biggest concern for the Indian side was that the sight of the Islamic State being allowed to expand and America basically doing as little as it possibly could. That was one side of it. And the other side, of course, was the issue in Afghanistan, where Obama's determination to get out of Afghanistan as quickly as possible. And if that meant the Taliban were going to come back to power in some form with Pakistani support, so be it. It didn't really matter to him. And definitely during the Manmohan Singh government, there was a lot of irritation on the Indian side about this policy. And to be fair, I think India deliberately undermined Obama's policy in Afghanistan as much as it could, deliberately to ensure that the Taliban didn't come to power.
Sure. You know, one of the big challenges as Obama came to power, he promised he'll get out of the Middle East, he'll get out of Afghanistan. He promised that, and then he had to stay the course because he'd reached out to the Americans and said that we don't want to be involved in other parts of the world. We want to look after our own people first. And I think that left a big vacuum in the whole world where the US was very heavily involved. Please stay with us as we discuss the other two countries in the region. Now we look at Pakistan's relations with the US. During his 2 terms in office, Pakistan-US relations saw many ups and downs. However, in the last few months, the relations between the two countries have further deteriorated. WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui reports.
When Obama took charge in 2008, Pakistan was one of Washington's closest allies in war on terror in neighboring Afghanistan. Civil and military aid was still pouring in for the first 2 years of Obama's presidency. But the bilateral relationship started to flag by 2010. This was when Pakistan refused to carry out further military operations in areas demanded by the US. Little did Pakistan know that this do more mantra would be iterated and reiterated. It would become the defining aspect of Pak-US relations. 2011 was the year when Pakistan and US relations became increasingly strained, and since then the two countries have been unable to restore the level of understanding that was witnessed post 9/11. By 2011, things took a turn for the worse when first a CIA contractor murdered 2 Pakistanis in what he claimed was self-defense, following which the US conducted a unilateral military operation in the garrison city of Abbottabad, where they took out Osama bin Laden from a house a stone's throw away from a military academy. It raised many questions about Pakistan's complicity in hiding bin Laden. The relationship continued to deteriorate. In 2011, Pakistani border posts were attacked by the US military, killing 28 Pakistani soldiers. Islamabad suspended NATO supply routes and shut down a US drones operation base in Balochistan. Later, the US administration apologized and the Pakistanis restored the supply route. By 2014, ties began to improve as the US drawdown in Afghanistan began and it needed Pakistani help. In the last 2 years, however, the Obama administration has once again distanced itself from Pakistan while moving closer to India. The US has been openly critical of Pakistan's double role in supporting militancy in Afghanistan while claiming otherwise. In his last State of the Union address, the outgoing president also focused on Pakistan and said that the country would face instability for decades to come. With the new administration taking charge this month, Islamabad already feels under pressure given that Trump does not hold a positive view about Pakistan. In Islamabad, Taha Siddiqui, WION.
We're now joined by WION's Pakistan Bureau Chief Taha Siddiqui live from Islamabad. Taha, Pakistan's ties with the US deteriorated under Obama. Your story suggests it may not get better under Trump either.
Well, definitely, that's what the perception here is in the Pakistani foreign office community and the government and the bureaucrats. They say that the biggest issue with the incoming administration, Trump, is the fact that there are a few indications where Trump in the past has said that Pakistan is not a friend, Pakistan is not an ally, especially after the Bin Laden episode. Then with Dr. Shakil Afridi, who's basically this person who was involved with the Bin Laden catching of Bin Laden, who's in a Pakistani jail right now. The US has demanded his release also, and Trump has talked about that, and Pakistan is adamant of not giving him up. But recently we saw a conversation between Trump and Nawaz Sharif happening, which was released by the Nawaz Sharif office, by the Pakistani Prime Minister office. And in that statement, they said that Trump, in the conversation, Trump was really warm towards Pakistan. But later on, again, we saw that the Trump administration said that that leak of that conversation was not appropriate. And they said that it was just a very casual conversation, and it was nothing, no policy making was discussed in it. So in that sense, Trump, given the fact that he's been hawkish in the past, has said statements against Pakistan, is perceived to be closer to India also, again, which is one of the paranoias in Pakistan, that the US is getting closer to India. So all of those factors put in and together does make it seem like in the coming days, Pakistan's difficulties will increase when it comes to the US relations.
Taha, it's not going to be an easy journey for Pakistan. Trump has been adamantly against Pakistan. He's spoken many times over, and he's a bit anti-Islamic, if I may say so, the statements I heard in the United States. Give us a sense, what is the expectation people have on the ground in Pakistan?
Well, that's another issue as far as the migrant community is concerned in Pakistan, from Pakistan that lives in the US. We've already seen, and I've spoken to some people who have returned back from the US or have sent their families back to the country, saying that things are not looking good for them because of the rising Islamophobia and the discrimination that Pakistan faces. As far as the civil-military relations are concerned, we do know that the military relations with the United States have been quite strong. On the civilian side, we've seen that they haven't been really strong. On the people-to-people side also, we're seeing that there's a lot of tension with regards to migrants, the migrant society, the migrant community living in the US belonging from Pakistan. And so in that sense, in the coming days, that will also be one of the factors that will define the relationship.
Sure. Thank you, Taha, for your inputs. Pramit, let me come to you. When it specifically talk about Pakistan, there have been a lot of complaints from India about terrorism emanating out of Pakistan. Do you think the Obama administration could pressurize Pakistan enough to wind down some of the operations that it had?
Obama or Trump?
Obama.
Obama. No, he didn't do very much in the end. While it's mentioned that the relationship did deteriorate, ultimately Obama, as happened even with the Bush administration, accepted that he had a dependency on Pakistan so long as he had to maintain his troop presence in Afghanistan. And in addition, the Obama administration, broadly for most of the years it was in power, believed that Pakistan was an essential solution to the ability of America to withdraw from Afghanistan and leave at least a semblance of stability with effectively some sort of a Taliban joint government and so on in Kabul. So no, the view in India was that Obama did not do almost anything, in fact, to put any real pressure. Abbottabad did make a shift, but really it was the U.S. Congress near the end that really put the pressure on Pakistan. So you saw even to the last few months of the administration, Obama was still trying to sell F-16s or not even sell, to just give them to Pakistan. And it was the U.S. Congress that said no.
But said no, absolutely.
You have to pay. You pay market rates for this, and you're not going to get any aid from it.
And that's when they decided not to take it.
Yeah.
Mr. Kugelman, can you give us a sense of why Obama wasn't really able to act against terrorism emanating out of Pakistan?
Well, I mean, there's only so much, in all fairness to Obama, there's only so much that he could have done. The U.S. Under Obama continued to send a lot of weapons and aid to Pakistan. And I think some of the more naive analysts and officials in this town thought that by continuing to engage in such largesse with Pakistan, that eventually Pakistan would begin to help the United States in ways that would serve U.S. interests, and that would entail doing more to deal with these terror groups, not just the terror groups that stage attacks in Pakistan, but those that target Afghans and Americans and Indians. Of course, talking about groups like LET, JEM, Jaish-e-Mohammed, Haqqani Network, and so forth. But, at the end of the day, Pakistan has its interests. These are interests that, Washington certainly does not view favorably, and I, of course, know India does not view them favorably as well, and that entails the Pakistani security establishment maintaining ties with these types of so-called good militant groups. And I think that, there's sort of a myth that aid can confer leverage, and that, if you have all this money and weaponry and you throw it at Pakistan, it'll act differently. It hasn't. Now, of course, Pakistan did take action in North Waziristan against the Pakistani Taliban and its allies back in 2014. That's something the Obama administration had been trying to get the Pakistanis to do for years, and they had not. So you could argue that Obama helped bring that outcome about. But ultimately, it comes down to hard interests that the U.S. or anyone else can't do anything about.
Right. Let's now go over to Bangladesh and how the Obama presidency weighed in on Dhaka. The Obama administration has extended full cooperation on security and placed its trust on the country's ability to fight terrorism. Trade, which is another key area of interest between the two countries, however, has not been at its best. WION's bureau chief Saad Hamadi sends this report.
The recent terror attack in Dhaka involving young radicalized men claiming affiliation to the Islamic State came as a shock and a warning. It has given further impetus to the training and other assistance given by the US to Bangladesh. There have been state visits by both US Secretaries of State Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, reassuring the US commitment for cooperation with Bangladesh.
As you know, that traditionally we have a very good relationship with all the US administration, US, and during President Obama's time, there was this security forum which has been meeting regularly, for dialogue, and then there has been this. We signed this the framework of agreement, which is on TIFCA, which was long pending, and this was something which hopefully we were assured that there will be enhanced investment and trade relationship and economic benefits, etc.
Bangladesh's relationship with the United States essentially revolved around trade and security. While foreign affairs analysts appreciate the Obama administration for extending the security cooperation, in terms of trade, the country has had bumps. The growth of exports to the United States has declined, and the removal of GSP in 2013 has hit the country's market in the United States. In financial year 2008-9, Bangladesh's RMG exports to the US tallied 14% growth compared to its previous year. The growth since then has declined to 6.37% in financial year 2015-16. As Obama concludes his tenure, how the relationship between the two countries would evolve in areas of trade and security remains to be tested. In Dhaka, this is Saad Hamadi for WION.
Joining us live from Bangladesh is Saad Hamadi, our Bangladesh bureau chief. Saad, give us a sense. There has been enough reason for Bangladesh to be happy about the ties with the US during Obama's tenure.
Right. So essentially, there have been three components which have fared really well since Obama took over in 2008, which would be essentially the security, trade, and the Bangladeshi diaspora that lives in the United States, which has increased to about 300,000 in course of time. And now looking at all of these, the security cooperation has increased, and by the secretaries of state who have visited Bangladesh, both the secretaries of state during Obama administration have assured of their cooperation in terms of security. But trade, unfortunately, has not fared that well during Obama's time. Then again, if we look at the geopolitical strategy from the foreign affairs analysts that I've spoken to, they say that Obama's profile itself, being of Kenyan heritage and ancestry, gave Obama a sort of affiliation or a connection with the Bangladeshi authorities and Bangladeshi people. So that has been there.
Sure.
And in addition to that, if you look into the strategies that Obama played out in terms of the war and any other political relations that it has maintained with the Muslim Brotherhood, the 2009 speech that he gave in the Egypt also drew a lot of attraction and attention for the Bangladeshis, given that it's a Muslim majority country. So all of that together, Obama maintained a preference for Bangladeshi people.
Sure. You know, it's one of those things. Bangladesh has always looked at the United States and said that the relationship the U.S. has enjoyed with the U.S. With Pakistan is far better than U.S. has with Bangladesh. But certainly during the Obama administration, some of that did change, and some changes were seen on the ground in Bangladesh itself. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us for the show. Thank you, Mr. Kugelman. Thank you, Saad. Thank you, Taha. Stay with us for more news and on the other side of the break. Thanks for joining us for Gravitas. Good night and good luck.